Beth couldn't remember the last time she'd seen her son Marcus so excited or so well-dressed. His usual clothes were old gym shorts and a t-shirt. Today, he was wearing well-pressed trousers and a blue long-sleeve shirt. Beth was also wearing a beautiful dress. It was late Sunday morning, and it looked like she and Marcus were getting ready to go to church. They were supposed to leave in a few minutes, but not to the church. Beth and her son were going to her first MS Club meeting. It was a mystery to Beth, but it sounded tempting. Marcus made several friends online where he spent a lot of time competing in multiplayer games. They invited him to join their club, and obviously the young people's moms were invited to the club meeting too. Beth was happy. For a long time, it seemed that Marcus was glued to his computer screen. It was nice to see how he got to know people and communicate. Beth was glad to get out too. She had been a widow for several years and often felt lonely. She could spend a couple of days in the company of Marcus, who had just graduated from college but still lived with her at her house. It would be nice to meet other women her age. Beth's husband had died a few years earlier, leaving her to take care of her only son, Marcus. After her husband's death, she tried to date a little, but nothing came of it, and Beth spent most of the nights alone. "It's time to go, Mom," said Marcus. "I'm ready," she replied. Marcus politely let Beth precede him to the car in the garage. He even opened the door for her to her surprise. She was surprised by his sense of etiquette. She settled into her seat, and Marcus got behind the wheel on the other side. He turned on the BF ignition. "I'm so glad you've made friends. From everything you've told me, they seem like nice, young people." "Oh yes," he said, "they're great guys. You'll like them, and you'll like their moms too. I've met some of them." "Well, I'm looking forward to it too," Beth said, beaming. "A little communication is good for a person." Marcus laughed for some reason. "I'm glad you would think so, Mom." After a 15-minute drive, Marcus stopped the car in the driveway of a large Tudor-style house in one of the most expensive areas of the city. Beth was impressed. Her own house, the payment for which matched her income as a nurse, was modest in comparison. Marcus's new friend's parents must have been rich. Marcus rang the doorbell, and a few moments later, he and Beth were greeted by a beautiful, perfectly groomed Hispanic woman who gave them a pearly white smile. Beth guessed that she was about the same age as herself, about 45. "I'm Lorena," she said. "Hi, Marcus, you must..." "Beth, come in." 16 people were inside the house, apparently waiting for them. 8 young men, all of whom appear to be between 20 and 30 years old, and 8 women whose ages apparently range from 40 to 50 years old. Beth was surprised by the attractiveness of the members of the club. Compared to them, she felt worse. It would be frightening if the women weren't so friendly to her. The men mostly crowded into the living room, while the women gathered around a large granite island in Lorena's spacious, immaculately clean kitchen. At one end of the island was a basket wrapped in corrugated paper. Beth was amazed at the reception she received. The women paid most of their attention to her or another woman who introduced herself as Marilyn. Marilyn was dressed prettiest of all. She was holding a basket with one hand. She seemed agitated, as if she was expecting something. Lorena put an end to the fuss by tapping her champagne glass with a dessert spoon. The young people slipped into the kitchen through 2 doors, until the whole assembly gathered around the kitchen island. One of the young men handed out half-filled champagne glasses to everyone present. "It's time for everyone." Lorena said, "First of all, I want everyone to welcome Beth, who is new and whom we hope to get to know much better. Beth and Marcus, we look forward to you joining our club, but that's later. Today we turn our attention to Marilyn and her son Russell. The dedication will take place today. I have no doubt that everything will go well. Marilyn and Russell will become official members of the MS Club." "Hooray! Hooray!" everyone exclaimed. Dedication? Beth couldn't remember Marcus saying anything about initiation. She was puzzled. The mystery was getting deeper. "It's time to open the gift. Basket, Marilyn." Marilyn blushed and carefully removed the corrugated paper. She took several items out of the basket and held them up to the applause and laughter of everyone in the group. Beth saw no point in the gifts, which included, among other things, breath freshener mints, a can of stain remover, and knee pads. Obviously, this was a joke involving everyone except Beth. She leaned over to Marcus, who was standing next to her, and whispered, "Marcus, what's the matter?" "What is it?" she asked. "It's just an inside joke, Mom," he whispered back. "You'll see later." Beth followed the events with curiosity. After the gift was finished, Russell, a thin guy who looked about the same age as Marcus, took his mother by the hand and led her out of the room. The other young men, including Marcus, followed them to another part of the house, while all the other women stayed in the kitchen. Lorena led the remaining women into an adjacent spacious dining room on which a large amount of cheese, crackers, fruits, pastries, champagne, and many bottles of wine were laid out. Beth wondered where Marilyn and the men had gone, but she didn't have time to think about it any further because the women around her were distracting her with talking and drinking champagne. They seemed eager to see her get enough. Soon her head was buzzing. She wasn't worried about being drunk because Marcus was driving. Lorena finally spoke up, silencing the others. "I suppose you have a few questions. You must be interested to know about our club." "Yes," Beth stammered, realizing that the pleasant buzz from the champagne had spread in her head and caused a slight slur in her words. "I want it, but you were so sweet that I didn't want to be bothersome with questions." "You don't have to worry about that at all," Lorena said, smiling, and all the other women around her smiled and laughed too. An elegant woman with a perfect hairstyle named Rita put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We were all like that. You're a little nervous about it at first, but we have no doubt that you'll fit in perfectly." Beth was puzzled. Lorena explained Eames means mother-son. "As you can see, our club is a small group consisting of young people and their mothers. We are very selective, and very few moms and sons get to that first meeting. So far, everyone who was present eventually joined in. I am glad to inform you, and so far no one has regretted it. You've probably noticed that men are in their 20s, while women are in their 40s and 50s. I noticed that." Beth nodded. "You may also have found out from talking to the women you've dated so far that we're all either divorced or widowed. There are no married women in this club. I noticed that too." "Good. There are good reasons for this. We are very careful about our club and its activities. Curious, jealous husbands could ruin everything and give away the secret." "Jealous?" Beth asked. "Yes, Beth," Lorena continued. "Our club is secret. It's important that it stays that way. Many people wouldn't understand. Many would even be shocked. We don't want to be the center of attention." "I don't understand," Beth said. "I'll explain. You might be surprised, but like this." Lorena took a deep breath and straightened up, staring intently at Beth. "Beth, all of us sitting here at the table are our son's mistresses." Beth was glad she hadn't sipped the champagne because she would undoubtedly have spat it out. She coughed loudly and her jaw dropped, and her eyes bulged wildly. "What?" "So I was right," Lorena said. "You didn't know. I know it's a bit shocking at first, but you heard me right. We love our sons. This is the goal of the MS Club. We maintain a romantic relationship between sons and mothers. In fact, this is a prerequisite for participation in the club." The next person to speak was another woman, Rose, with freckles and long silver hair. "Are you wondering what Marilyn is doing right now?" The light in Beth's head began to fade. "You mean right now she's making love to Russell for the very first time in the big bedroom on the other side of Lorena's house. There are other men with them, including your son Marcus." "Wait a minute," Beth said. "Is this some kind of big party? What have you gotten my son into?" Lorena raised her hand. No, not at all," she said. "It's not like that. They are there to witness this action and record it. They have photo and video cameras. Why are they doing this?" Beth asked. "Entertainment and insurance," Lorena said. "No one can be a part of the club if it is not fully invested, so to speak. The videos and photos are stored here at my house and is safe because I am the president of the club. We must take certain steps to ensure that all members of the club observe secrecy." "You mean these are blackmail materials?" Beth asked. "We don't think so. I assure you it was never close to that. As I said earlier, we are very selective and very attentive to who we are looking for. So far, we have never made a wrong choice. But being careful is worth being careful. So that's what we do." "My God, I can't believe this. It's true?" "Yes, Beth," Lorena said. "I assure you it's real." Beth studied their faces. They all looked like such a nice, respectable group of women. "Why? Why are you doing this?" "I know it sounds weird to you, Beth," Lorena said, "but once you get used to it, it becomes perfect." "How so?" Beth asked. "For a number of reasons. First of all, our age. women reach their peaks much later than men and stay at their peak longer. Men reach their peak at the age of 20. We are perfect for each other. Secondly, our situations. All of us women are divorced or widowed. We all have sons, beautiful, young, energetic sons, and there are no husbands who could intervene. All of us, at least, are financially secure enough, so we can afford to do this. We don't need an older man to take care of us. And there is a third reason. What is it? Beth asked. It's fun, Lorena exclaimed, and the other women at the table whispered in agreement. You're an attractive woman. Marcus is a handsome young man. Haven't you ever had feelings? Tingling here and there? Marcus told us that you haven't dated in a couple of years. Of course, when you're all alone in the house with your beautiful little son, you should have thoughts from time to time. I can assure you that he notices you. Have you ever caught him looking you as a woman, not just as a mom? I do not know, Beth replied. She couldn't remember ever seriously having any thoughts about her son. But lately she had noticed how handsome he had become and how much he looked like his late father. And lately she noticed Marcus glancing at her from time to time. I do not know what to say, she said. It's just so weird. It seems that way at first, Lorena said, but this feeling passes quickly. For us, it seems completely natural and normal and very satisfying. Before I say anything else, I need to familiarize you with the rules of our club. Rules? Yes, rules. First of all, secrecy. Every member of this group, including mothers and sons, must promise never, under any circumstances, to say anything about the club or about its activities or even about its existence to anyone who is not a member or potential member of the club. Actually, before I go on, you have to agree right now that you won't say anything about our meeting today or what you've learned. Do you agree? Yes, Beth said, and her head was still spinning. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want anyone to know that I was here. That's right, Lorena said. It can be awkward just to be associated with the club, even to this extent. Secondly, the sons must be at least 21 years old. Thirdly, mothers and sons, although they belong to the club, cannot enter into relationships with other people outside the Blade Club. Why? For two reasons. Firstly, to promote the development of relationships and encourage them to be as good as possible. And secondly, to avoid exposure. We don't want girlfriends and boyfriends poking their noses into what we do. So, is this a permanent arrangement? Not necessarily, Lorena continued. Not for most people. In most cases, either the son or the mother eventually meets someone else, lets us know. And they both leave the club. They continue to live their lives and close a wonderful family chapter. But there are 3 participants who have continued their relationship and they can be permanent. Who are they? Beth asked, looking around the table. They're not here. They are no longer members of the club. We have another rule, according to which participation in the club ends when a man turns 29 years old. They are free to continue their relationship and they remain our friends, but they are no longer official members of the club. We think it's better this way. This is illegal at all. Beth asked. Technically, not in this state, Lorena said. Rose, who is a lawyer, has carefully researched this issue. Legally, this is not legal, but as far as we know, no one has been prosecuted in our memory. The authorities don't care what adults do in this state as long as it happens to other adults. And this brings us to the 5th rule, which is that participants must be very careful not to engage in any other illegal activity that could lead to the risk of exposure. Caution is our most important rule. Violation of this rule or any other rule will result in immediate expulsion from the club. Beth didn't say anything, trying to process it all. She thought of her son in the next room. Marcus, he knows all about it, Lorena said, nodding. You're here because he wants you here. He wants to join a club with you. He had wanted this for some time. Lorena's words hit Beth with the force of a hammer. Her son wanted to see her as a lover. He had been talking to her about the tea club for a few weeks, so obviously he wanted her even before that. And the club approved of him, telling her about it. The process was launched many weeks ago. How long had he been fantasizing about her? How far has it gone? Her mind went blank. It was incredible, but it was undeniable. Beth tried to imagine something that was impossible to imagine. It was flattering to think that her young, handsome son found her attractive enough. But how could she actually, in the end, do that? Wouldn't she be a bad mother? Wouldn't her son prefer to date girls his own age? She didn't want any more children. After all, Marcus would want to find a girlfriend. Settle down and start a family. He couldn't do this to his mother. But it didn't have to be permanent. That's what Lorena said. They could be lovers for a while, just long enough to enjoy it, and maybe get to know Marcus more about women, and then... Sounds from the next room interrupted her thoughts. Marcus's friends are back. They entered the room, lined up along the dining room wall, surrounding the table, and waited until the honorable couple entered. Marilyn and Russell. Everyone in the room applauded. Beth looked for her son and saw that he was standing next to the fair couple. He was looking at Beth, smiling faintly, but obviously wondering what she was thinking. The party continued for another hour, but the official program was completed, and no one else told Beth anything about the club or its business. They seemed to be trying to calm her down by engaging her in pleasant chatter and treating her to more food and wine. By the time the party was over, Beth didn't feel uncomfortable. Neither she nor Marcus said anything to each other in the car on the way home for a while. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "What do you think, Mom? Everyone was very nice. I'm glad. But, what do you think of the club?" Beth didn't answer for a long time. "Is this really what you want?" "Yes, Mom, it is. I want this, Mom." "Why?" "Because I think it would be great. You're lonely." "I'm lonely. We live in the same house, at least until I find a job somewhere else, and I don't have to move if that happens. You're beautiful." "No, Mom, you're beautiful." I think so." "Well, no, I didn't know that. But it's nice to hear. Thank you. I don't feel beautiful. I feel more inconspicuous than beautiful. You reach a certain age and you start to feel that way. It's like no one notices you anymore. I noticed." "Listen," said Marcus. "You don't need to say anything or decide anything right now. I've talked to the guys a lot about it, and everyone goes through these feelings. Your son, it's weird, isn't it? It was weird for me too, but I had a lot of time to discuss it with the guys and with some moms. So I figured it out. Yes, I want to do it. But I'm not deciding yet. Think about it. We can talk about it. Oh, you've given me a lot to think about. There is no doubt about it. I'm still in shock. Marcus, I have to ask you. Dedication. All these guys are watching. Do you like it? Am I surrounded by other guys? If you mean sharing, then no. That's not what I like. But dedication is part of the deal. And honestly, yes, it kind of turns me on to think that they'll see you even if they can't touch you. That's who you are, even if you don't think about it that way. I think of you as a butterfly that needs to get out of its cocoon. I like that others see you like this. They arrived home, broke up, and went their separate ways to spend the rest of the day doing different things. Marcus went for a long run, and Beth was pulling weeds out of her flower garden. She weeded with a vengeance, leaving no stray, unwanted plants untouched until she stacked a row of heaps of weeds along the bed. The vigor of the weeding distracted her from the revelations made at the club meeting. When she finished, a mixture of sweat and dirt caked on her skin. She scooped up all the weeds, threw everything in the trash can, and returned to the house. They arrived home. Broke up and went their separate ways to spend the rest of the day doing different things. Marcus went for a loan, and Beth was pulling weeds out of her flower garden. She weeded with a vengeance, leaving no stray, unwanted plants untouched until she stacked a row of heaps of weeds along the bed. The vigor of the weeding distracted her from the revelation at the club meeting. When she finished, a mixture of sweat and dirt caked on her skin. She scooped up all the weeds, threw everything in the trash can, and returned to the house. By the time she finished taking a shower and put on a skirt and a loose white cotton blouse, it was time to think about dinner. She made spaghetti, warmed up a jar of ready-made sauce, and quickly mixed and seasoned with a green salad while Marcus showered himself after a jog. Marcus came into the kitchen, back in his usual uniform of shorts and a t-shirt and sliced bread at Beth's request. They didn't say anything to each other. It seemed better that way. It would be awkward to talk about the club, but talking about something else would be just as awkward. Silence was the only convenient way out. After dinner was set and they sat down to dinner, Beth and Marcus chatted about what they had done that day. Beth talked about how she was weeding, and Marcus talked about his running. They discussed what they were thinking about until their plates were almost empty and the bread was gone. In the end, Beth came back to the point. "Is that really what you want, Marcus?" "What is it?" she asked. "I want a mom. I really want to." She said. They got up from the table, cleared the table, and washed the dishes. "Let's watch a movie later tonight, Mom." Marcus said, "Okay," Beth replied. Marcus seemed to have a clearer idea of what he wanted than she did, and she let him direct the events. Beth retired to her bedroom to be alone with her thoughts for a while before watching a movie with Marcus. Her thoughts were in a mess, and she wanted to try to untangle them. She closed the bedroom door behind her and sat on the edge of the bed. Her first instinct was that it was wrong, and no responsible mother would be able to do that. And yet earlier that day at Lorraine's house, she had breakfast with 8 other women. They all seemed respectable, attractive, and well off. It didn't fit with anything she'd ever known or experienced in her life, but it was true. The fact was inevitable. She couldn't deny that fact. She was flattered that her handsome young son, who easily found attractive women of his age, wanted her. Lately, she had been feeling she couldn't nay that fact. She was flattered that her handsome young son, who easily found attractive women of his age, wanted her. Lately, she had been feeling empty and unwanted. It was only last year that she finally came to terms with her husband's death and wondered if she would be dating again. Her few dating experiences, usually through online sites, did not impress her. Men her age seemed to be looking for women 10 years younger. The men who were interested in her were mostly 10 or more years older. Beth was surprised that Marcus didn't have a girlfriend. He was quite handsome and smart. He had a pleasant, relaxed manner of communicating with people, but for some reason, he didn't get attached to anyone. "Mom?" Marcus's voice outside the bedroom door interrupted her thoughts. "Do you want to watch a movie?" "Of course," she shouted at him. Beth wasn't sure what she wanted. She was ready to rely on Marcus. Beth went into the kitchen to have another glass of wine before heading into the living room to watch a movie with her son. God knows, she didn't need another glass after drinking so much at brunch, but she still felt on edge and wine would calm her nerves. Marcus was already sitting on the couch with a beer in his hand. Beth sat on the couch half a meter away from him with her glass of wine and sipped it while his fingers clicked the remote control. They were watching the romantic comedy Marcus's Choice. The frequent skin displays made Beth feel nervous by the time her wine glass was drained and the film credits were over. Marcus kept his distance until the movie was over and then patted the couch next to him. "Mom, let's talk." Beth didn't say anything, but she crawled across the couch until she sat down, next to Marcus. "I want to try something," Marcus said. "They said it would be a good one. The icebreaker. You don't have to say anything or decide anything, but can I try something?" "What? Just trust me." Okay, Beth didn't know what to say. "All right," she said finally. "This way, Mom." Reluctantly, but obediently, Beth did as her son asked, got up from the couch and sat down again. Her heart was pounding. She didn't know what he was going to do, and she wasn't sure if she could bear it. "Just relax. I won't do too much, but it will be nice. All the other moms have been through this." Beth still wasn't sure she wanted to be like other moms, but there was some small comfort in knowing that she wasn't alone, that all the women she'd met earlier in the day would approve and encourage what she was doing with Marcus right now. He didn't do anything else for what seemed like many seconds. "How does it feel?" "It's nice," Beth said in a low voice. The living room, although small, seemed to be a quiet, vast cave. She felt lost in it. "They told me how to do it." What to say and what to do," Marcus said. "Are they Lorena and her son? At their house last week. I was watching them. She trained me." "Have you been watching them?" "Yes, I was watching. Wasn't that nice?" He asked. "I'm going to go to bed." Beth stood up to let him get off the couch. He went to his bedroom. Beth was confused. She didn't know how to feel, but not to the point of feeling ashamed or guilty. And yet it was Marcus who pulled away. Men weren't supposed to be capable of that, were they? But he did. His composure confused her. Beth went to her bedroom on the other side of the house. She lay in bed for a long time, thinking about everything before she fell asleep. The next day was Monday, so Beth woke up early to get ready for work. Marcus's work started later than hers, so he sauntered into the kitchen for coffee when she was almost done and ready to get in the car. She expected him to say something, but he didn't. Marcus's words when she left for work were nothing more than slurred. All day long, Beth tried to focus on her work and forget the events of the previous day, but she couldn't do anything. She walked through the corridors of the hospital, caring for a patient, trying to give everyone her full attention. But her son's words loomed in front of her like a neon sign wherever she went. That evening at home, later than usual, Beth cooked dinner and heard the door slam when Marcus returned home. Half an hour later, they were sitting at the dining table, eating together. They ate in silence for a while, poking cautiously with their forks until Beth spoke. "Marcus, say something." Marcus feigned surprise. "What do you want me to say, Mom?" he asked. "You can't blame it on me and not say anything. It's driving me crazy. What do you want me to say?" Beth was puzzled. She wasn't sure what she wanted to hear from Marcus. "Figure it out for me, please," she said. "What made you want to do this? Something happened?" Marcus waited a long time before answering. "No, not quite. It wasn't like a light bulb suddenly lit up. It was happening slowly. I wasn't really interested in dating. I noticed that you're not dating. We were at home together all the time, and it seemed like you were lonely. I started looking at you differently, less like a mom, more like a person, if that makes sense. And it was only once. Yes, it was late at night. I wanted to ask you something. I forgot what it was about. I went to your bedroom. The door was closed, and I heard you. Did you hear me?" But Beth knew what he meant. "I listened. It went on for a long time. I was surprised how long it took. I thought I made a noise and you'd hear me, but I don't think you did. I tiptoed away. I made a big mess and I had to clean up." "Oh my God, Marcus," Beth said. Admiration for his story was mixed with embarrassment. "Yes, I know," he said. "It's not like flipping a switch or anything, but I didn't think about you the same way after that. I thought of you in your room needing something and I needed something. I had these feelings. And I went online, and one thing led to another. I found a couple of guys who were in the club, and they supported my feelings. They didn't think it was abnormal or weird or anything like that. And eventually I met Lorena's son, and then I met his mom, Lorena." He stopped. "Go on," Beth said. "They invited me to their house. It was just me, my son, and his mom, Lorena. And they showed me. Did they show you?" "They did it. In front of my eyes." Beth didn't answer. She didn't know what to say. Marcus continued to baffle her. "It's okay, Mom. You don't have to say anything. It's too hard to accept." Beth expected further persuasion or explanation that Marcus meant the process he would continue now that he had helped explain his feelings further and opened the door. But he didn't say anything. He got up, took the plates to the sink, and washed them before, hanging them up to dry. When he was done, he turned to Beth and said, "Good night, Mom." Once again, Beth was left disappointed, provoked. Her son left her immersed in her own complicated thoughts, and it was in this mood that after a while she also washed the dishes and went to her bedroom to sleep peacefully at night. 2 days later, after working a long shift at the hospital, Beth dressed for a run. Marcus hadn't said or done anything unusual since their conversation at dinner. No flirting, no gestures, no suggestion to continue the conversation. He was difficult to understand. Beth tried to distract herself from the strange atmosphere that had arisen between them, but it wasn't easy. She thought an energetic run might help when she put on shoes, shorts, and a tank top. "Is something wrong, Mom?" Marcus asked. "It's just a cramp in my leg," she said. "I'll figure it out. Let me help you." Before she could protest, Marcus led her by the hand to a chair and motioned for her to sit down. But Marcus pulled away again on his own. The massage was a success. Her leg got better, but Beth felt disappointed inside. She got up, left the house, and went for a run. When she returned, Marcus was cooking dinner. He had been doing this more often lately, and she appreciated his attentiveness. She also appreciated his skill. Their dinner fried potatoes and grilled chicken was delicious. After dinner, Marcus offered to wash the dishes. Beth's phone rang. She opened the connection in her bedroom. "Hello, Beth? This is Lorena. I hope I caught you at the right time." "Of course. Yes, I wanted to invite you to have lunch at my house this Saturday. Are you free?" "Yes, thank you." Beth was surprised at her own eagerness to agree. It's been a long time since she had dinner with a friend. Lorena wasn't really her friend. Not yet, but Beth thought she could be. You know this place. "How about noon?" "Great." They chatted a bit about the weather and their sons for a few minutes. Nothing obscene. And Lorena kindly said goodbye. She wasn't sure why, but she felt the need to keep up. And Lorena had set high standards. After greeting Beth at the door, Lorena looked as flawless as ever. Her son was nowhere to be seen, and Lorena explained that he had been with friends all day. Lorena was the perfect hostess. They dined on small sandwiches and sliced salads with a bottle of Chardonnay on a small table in the backyard patio. They spent some time chatting until Lorena got down to business. "I suppose you still have a lot of questions about this," she said. "That's putting it mildly," Beth said. Lorena smiled. "You accepted my invitation, so that's a good sign. Beth, Marcus told me about what's going on. At home with you, he told me about the session you had. After the movie, this is what we encourage, to make mom and son feel comfortable. It was nice, wasn't it?" "It was weird," Beth said, but Marcus was very patient. "I know, he's very good. Do you know?" "I know. Beth, I'm going to say something amazing. Please be patient and listen." Lorena paused, and Beth waited with bated breath. "Marcus came to our house the other day while my son and I were here. We talked a little bit about how things are going, and we made love. Did you make love? Don't be scared. This is what we teach all young people. It didn't take long. He has talent. I hope you'll feel it soon." Beth felt dizzy. It was all too weird. Really? It wasn't easy for her to say those words. "Has anything else happened?" No, Beth had come to terms with the fact that spending time with Lorena was always a lesson and surprise. "No," Lorena continued. "The purpose of this exercise was to help make sure that Marcus would be able to contribute to please you. I assure you he can. Your son will make you very happy if you let him." "I don't know what to say. You don't have to say much," Lorena said, laughing. "You could just nod. But seriously, if I understand your relationship correctly, Beth, you and Marcus are perfect for each other." "Really?" "It's hard to say. He seems like that, restrained. This is also part of their training. We teach them to be men, not just boys." There was something in the tone of Lorena's voice that couldn't be denied. So Beth did as Lorena asked and introduced it. The image formed slowly, and it took her mind a while to accept it and let it take shape. "Yes," Beth murmured. "That's it," Lorena said. "Give into it." Lorena guided Beth for another 10 minutes with the same endless patience that Marcus had shown. "Wow," she said. She opened her eyes and saw Lorena staring at her. "Beth," Lorena said, "we have another meeting in 2 weeks. Everyone in the club will be there. I would like you and Marcus to come and be initiated as well." "I think you're ready. I know Marcus is ready." Beth stared at Lorena for a long time. The backyard was quiet, except for a bird chirping somewhere. "I have to think about it, of course, but don't think too long. We don't want to rush you or anyone else, but we have our own rules. In our club, you either go in or out. This is our way. We will be glad to see you and Marcus at our meeting, but only if you are ready to say yes and be initiated. There is no pressure, but these are the rules. Do you understand?" "I understand." They changed the subject and chatted for a while about work and the movies they had recently watched until Beth left. On the way home, she was lost in her thoughts. Her heart and mind were in turmoil, but by the time she pulled into the garage and got out of the car, she knew what she needed to do. Marcus was waiting for her in the kitchen. He looked at her with wide eyes, a fixed and surprised look. Beth looked back. "I'll do it," she said. Beth bought a dress specifically for the occasion online, along with matching shoes. She was assessing herself in the passenger seat of the car as Marcus drove the car to Lorena's house 2 weeks after her lunch with Lorena. If she was going to do it, she was going to do it the way the other ladies did it. She didn't want Marilyn's performance a month earlier to overshadow her. Beth was nervous, but she hoped that she looked right for the occasion. She walked through the front door of Lorena's house, trying her best to build up her confidence, telling herself over and over again that she could do this, that all the other women in the house had done it, and that her son wanted her to do it, and that was all that mattered. With an effort, she tried not to think about the crowd of young people who would witness her initiation. It was between her and her son Marcus. That was all that mattered. She tried her best to convince herself of that. Beth crossed the threshold of Lorena's room and the decorous foyer and felt her fears, inhibitions, and resistance recede. She had given up, and surrender was a comfort. There was no way to turn around and walk back out that door. Her decision was made. She bravely smiled at the women who greeted her, and they smiled back. Greeting her, "Congratulations, Beth," Rose said. "You won't regret it," Lorena said. A basket wrapped in corrugated paper was waiting for her on the kitchen island. And after the introduction and a brief speech by Lorena, Beth opened it and, blushing deeply, picked up gifts similar to those that Marilyn had shown the group a month ago. Beth wondered how and when she would apply them, or how Marcus might apply them to her. Everything was said, and toasts were made with raised glasses of champagne, but for Beth it was all a blur. She knew what was going to happen and couldn't focus on anything else. Finally, Lorena said, "It's time," and Marcus took her hand. When she got to the bedroom, Beth didn't know what to do. Fortunately for Beth, Marcus did it. "This way, Mom," he said. All sense of will had left her. Circumstances, her son's plans, and their desire pushed her forward, seemingly without hesitation or effort. "Sit on the edge of the bed, Mom," Marcus said. Beth didn't have the energy to object, or did she do it? Perhaps she was just deluding herself into thinking that she was as much an accomplice in the conspiracy to involve her in this union as her son. But it wasn't like that. For Beth, her will dissolved into Marcus's will. She seemed to have no choice. Beth felt that Marcus was following the script he was given because he seemed awkward and paused at times as if remembering what he was supposed to do next. Marcus's friends leaned over the edge of the bed and high-fived him. Even more surprisingly, they held out their hands to Beth, and she gave them a high-five in return. They made love. She heard the door open and was escorted out, accompanied by her son and other men, as she returned to the kitchen. When she entered, the other moms who were standing and waiting for her applauded. Beth blushed and smiled. Lorena made some kind congratulatory remarks, but Beth could barely focus on them and couldn't remember anything Lorena had said. The women hugged her, and Beth felt proud and happy to be accepted. She felt like she was being carried on a cloud. Lorena said something about welcoming Beth as a new member of the Mom's Son Club. Champagne glasses were raised to the ceiling and emptied. Eventually, she and Marcus left. He offered her his arm. She accepted it, and he escorted her back to the car. He opened the door for her, and after they both took their seats, Marcus started the car and drove away. Neither of them said anything for several minutes. Marcus broke the silence. "It was amazing, Mom," he said. "Thank you for agreeing to this. What did you feel?" "It was amazing. For me too, Marcus. It's still amazing." Beth turned away, looking at Marcus's face. He seemed nervous. Beth wondered why. A few seconds later, Marcus suddenly turned right onto a side street. He parked the car at an empty curb 15 meters from the main road. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Beth asked. "Mom, you're driving me crazy. I need you again. Now? Now? Marcus, we're in public." "We are only 10 minutes away from home. Can it wait?" "No," he said. Beth looked around. They parked outside the office building. It was Sunday, and the office seemed to be closed. It was a public place, but she didn't see anyone around. She turned back to Marcus and wondered what she had gotten herself into. But she wasn't going to back down. They did it again. Since then, they have been visiting this club every day. End.